Welcome, everyone. Simon Rosenberg, Hopium Chronicles, back with another great event today. Joining me is David Jolly. David, welcome.
Hey, great to be with you, Simon. Thank you.
Listen, David has been an important commentator for us, incisive commentator on MSNBC now for many years, former congressman, has been in the political game for some time, and has some big news for us. He's a Florida political leader and has been an important interpreter for us for years now of the change that's happened in the Republican Party. And David, you just made a few announcements. You want to give us an update?
Yeah, I sure did. And I appreciate the way you framed that because, look, I've been an independent for 7 or 8 years. I was a Republican when I was in Congress, never a good enough Republican. Kind of started my journey away during the Tea Party years and then certainly broke during Trump. But I've considered myself part of the Democratic coalition really for the last 10 years. And about 2 weeks ago now, I officially became a registered Florida Democrat, and I'm excited about it. I got to tell you, when there are stories about the Democratic brand and people leaving the party, I'm rushing in defense of the values of today's Democratic Party. It's not really a pivot for me, right? As I mentioned, I've been part of the Democratic coalition. I believe fundamentally in the values of the Democratic Party, and I think the Democratic Party not only is right for the future of the country, but is prepared to win and win back control and the ability to direct that future. Secondly, I also launched Florida 2026, which in the state of Florida is a political committee that allows me to explore certainly issues and voter registration matters in 2026 in the state of Florida, but could also support an eventual candidacy should I choose to decide to run for governor.
Well, and I think it's important first of all, welcome. I just want to say, as a lifelong Democrat, it's great to have you on our team officially, and I'm rooting for you to decide to run for governor in
Right.
2026. But obviously, you get to make that choice. I think it's important for people to realize that Florida, up until very recently, was a competitive battleground state, and as
That's
recently
right.
as 2018, which was an election decided in two statewide elections by less than a percentage point, I think that it's only been in recent years with DeSantis and Trump and sort of the emergence of MAGA that
Yeah.
Florida has started shifting a little bit more Republican. But the question that you're going to raise in your emergence here and you're joining the Democratic Party is whether that was a temporary thing and how Democrats can reverse it.
Yeah.
And so what's your current view on that and how, if you were to run, I mean, what's the vision for how you can win?
Yeah. No, I love that, Simon. I believe Democrats can win the governorship of Florida in 2026. And those are very specific words because you are right. Florida has slipped from being competitive to, in the midst of COVID, Ron DeSantis won by 19 points his reelection. Last November, that trend came down to about 14 points in the presidential and in Rick Scott's reelection for the Senate. So a lot of people have said Florida's deep red. Now, I will tell you a couple of things. Democrats, and I know this, you've been a part of these conversations, Simon, cannot abandon Florida and Texas because with the Electoral College, assortment starting with the census in 2030, Democrats could be in a position of starting already having lost the Electoral College if Florida and Texas aren't in place. So we have to commit to Florida. Why do I believe in 26 Democrats really have a chance? And I'm sober about this, right? I've been out of politics long enough. I learned to tell the truth, and I'm not going to try to sell people something that's not there. But here's why the Florida governorship race is so special in 26. It is an open seat governorship without an incumbent. It is in the midst of what I think will be a generational, historic change election environment, right? The chaos, the scene that has been set by Donald Trump and in Florida by Ron DeSantis with the culture wars and the division, the change environment is there. So you have an open seat governorship in a national change environment. And governor's races are different, right? If you look at Andy Beshear in Kentucky, you look at Bullock in Montana, even Raimondo in Rhode Island during kind of a red wave year, though a blue state, you saw governors be able to talk about issues that met voters exactly where they are. And they're different in every state, right? In Florida, it's the affordability crisis driven by a collapsing property insurance market that's driving up rents or driving up housing costs for renters, for retirees, for homeowners. We have an abandonment of our public education system that we can reinvest in and celebrate teachers. The private school voucher system, Republicans have gone too far and it's collapsing. The economics are collapsing. We've got corruption in Tallahassee. It's now a national story how we've seen the governor and his wife move money from the Medicaid program to their own political committees. So those are all Florida issues, right? They'd be different in Michigan, California, wherever else we might see gubernatorial races. But in the midst of a national change election where the scene is largely set by Donald Trump and in Florida by Ron DeSantis, but to wake up every day talking about an affordability crisis, not about the president himself, is a very special environment for a gubernatorial run. Now, Florida Democrats have to do a few things different, right? It is a party that is in some ways a distressed asset, but that just means you pick it up and you get to retell the story, not reshape the party. I get incensed when I see Democratic leaders, I won't name check here, but say somehow Democrats have to change their values in 26 or change who they are. That's wrong. The Democratic Party is absolutely right on the issues. This isn't about changing the values of the Democratic Party. It's about retelling a very special story and meeting voters where they are in 2026, which might be different from where they were in 24, 22, and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, listen, two really important points for everybody. I just want to put exclamation points on for everyone. Is number one is that something we'll be talking about more here about the necessity that Democrats, we don't really have an option about contesting Florida and Texas. As you know, David, I have a long history of working in Florida, and Hopium, our first big project when we founded a little more than 2 years ago, is we played a major role in Donna Deegan getting elected mayor in Jacksonville, in the largest city in Florida. And Florida is a place that as you and I have discussed, I went to Lawton Childs' second inaugural in 1994. I'm old enough to be able to say things like that. And knew Lawton Childs and Buddy McKay back in the golden, and Bob Graham in the golden years of the Democratic Party of Florida. There's so much rich history and extraordinary political leaders that have come out of Florida from the Democratic Party that we have an important legacy to reclaim in Florida. But I think this fundamental point you're making about we have to find a way and a path forward as a party in both of these states, and you are helping us do that. The second thing that I think is really important about something you said is just the unique circumstances of this election cycle. We are already in a completely different place than we were 4 months ago, 5 months ago, based on Trump's polling collapse and his struggles. But I do think there is going to be a universal theme that is available to us, and we'll see if we can make it work for us, which is some version of they've just gone too far and it's too much, and you have lived that in Florida, incredibly.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, Simon, I've said about Florida even before considering getting into this race, I just want to pull us back from the edge.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we've got to stop the race towards the edge. I mean, Florida's been the home of the culture wars, the attack on Disney, the attack on marginalized communities, the suppression of the vote in communities of color, the notion that we're going to tell you who you can worship and who you can love, the attack on corporations simply for having promoted diversity and inclusion, the attack on the migrant community. I mean, there's also, when I say pull us back from the edge, look, there is a lot we can do policy-wise to reset an economy for all people. I think nationally that is a message for Democrats, but certainly in Florida, what does an economy look like for all people? What does education look like for all people? But first and foremost, it's also about resetting the tone, recognizing that we can actually be a state that lifts up all people, that embraces people for their contribution to the state and to our economy. That includes our immigrant community. I mean, part of what Democrats have an opportunity to do here and pulling us back from the edge is that edge is felt because there has been this war, this culture war unleashed by Republicans that unsettles people, even Republican performing voters, even, Republican performing retired women sitting in evangelical pews on Sunday mornings are saying, wait a minute, what is all this attacking people? Instead of fighting culture wars, let's just fight for lower property insurance. I want a government that just can soberly administer services. Republicans have framed this cycle very, very well for us. And to me, you've got as much gray hair as I do in politics. This very much, you mentioned Buddy McKay, you mentioned Bob Graham and others. There's also a bit of a Bill Clinton feeling in some of these opportunities nationally for Democrats in terms of a Democrat who fought for traditional values, even progressive values, as a blue dog if he was at the time. But it is not about abandoning the values of 24 and 22. It's really just about meeting voters where they are and embracing the issues of the moment. Republicans have created this chaos. Democrats have an opportunity to solve it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're saying amen. How many times can I say amen to all that? Um, and it's, I mean, the other thing you're going to have, David, and I think this is perhaps unappreciated yet, if you decide to run, is that we have a very strong national party now, and Ken Martin is
Right.
building a very powerful team. And, we all can acknowledge, despite your very vigorous chair, that the Florida Democratic Party as an institution has atrophied over the years, and that the sort of the mechanics of winning elections, recruiting candidates, and all the stuff you need to win a statewide race is not what it was a decade ago. And you now have a partner in the national party who can bring in strategy, expertise, capacity, right, to sort of help the Democratic Party in Florida modernize
That's
quickly
right.
in this cycle, right? Not over the next 4 to 8 years, but in this cycle. And there's a possibility that we will have a far stronger thing underneath, our efforts in Florida in 2026.
That's right. I've spoken to Ken, and not to divulge too much, but what I've said is whether I'm a candidate or not, and I believe we are moving to a launch very soon, probably in the next 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks. But what I've said we need in a candidate in Florida is someone that is willing to do their part to invest in the time resources, the financial resources, the ability to touch every voter across the state of Florida, build a broad coalition, but to inspire national Democrats to believe again in Florida, that something different can happen in Florida. That's the candidate's job, right? And then the party is there to say, we see what you're doing. We're going to invest back in the state. We've got a big voter registration operation that we need to invest in. I think the candidate has to lead that in the state of Florida. And I would also point out what you see, what Ken and others see, and national Democrats know, is you can look at Florida and say, okay, the votes have gotten away from us the last 2 cycles. But then explain to me why every big city mayor in Florida is a Democrat elected by Democrats. That includes Donna Deegan in Jacksonville, a former Republican, now Democrat. Includes
Yeah.
Buddy Dyer in Orlando, Ken Welch in St. Petersburg, Jane Castor in Tampa, Gabriella in Miami. The big city mayors, the big population centers are Democrats because those are races where Democrats accept the responsibility of using government to help lift people up, while Republicans are fighting to just end government at all, right? The Bush 41 kind of orientation that I had, the party of less government, became the party of no government in the Tea Party years, and now it's the government's the enemy. That's the Trump years. And I think most voters say, first of all, we're paying for this government, right? I mean, our taxes are notionally supposed to support a government that works. So what is it doing for homeowners and veterans and seniors? What is it doing for people in need? Because we can be the Democratic mayors and the Democratic governors that retell this story about the values of today's Democratic Party. I think national Democrats have a lot of reason to be excited about 26, not just for taking back the House, but for some very special governor's races across the country.
And it looks like on their side, as they prepare, they're going to have some contested primaries on their side, it looks like, right?
That's right. Yeah, look, in Florida, Byron Donalds is Donald Trump's handpicked candidate. So if we're in the midst of a change election, do you really want to be the baggage of Donald Trump's guy? I'm not sure you do. I think he's also way wrong on guns. Florida actually passed a post-Parkland package that included red flag laws, raising the age of purchase of some firearms from 18 to 21. Donalds wants to roll all that back. Byron Donalds is against the Parkland Republican-led gun violence prevention package. And then Casey DeSantis might get in. If we're in the midst of a change election, do you really want a third term of Ron DeSantis? Because their message will be, if you like your affordability crisis, you can keep it. Is that really the message you're going to take to voters? And then if Casey DeSantis gets in, Matt Gaetz might get in. God bless him. Everybody come in, because if we can unify a Democratic Party, a Democratic primary, not clear it, right? There are a lot of voices that need to be heard. But if Democrats can unify early behind their statewide candidates, a gubernatorial candidate, our cabinet officers are on the ballot, in their own right for the offices of Ag, CFO, Attorney General. If we can unify as Democrats, while Republicans have their messy, messy primary, and look, I think we can have, we being Democrats, but certainly if I'm a candidate, by next spring, we can return Florida to a single digit state and then watch out. All bets are off. If we've got this in single digits with 6 months to go, we have a pathway for Democrats to win statewide in Florida next November.
Well, listen, thank you for spreading some important optimism about this
Hey, you
critical
can find
state.
it at davidjolly.com, Simon. If that's an indication I might run, it's the first time in 10 years, I got to name drop the website, davidjolly.com.
davidjolly.com. And David, I want, if you decide to get in, I want to bring you back in a few weeks, but I'm really grateful for you spending time. I'm grateful for your courage. I want to welcome you with open arms into our party, and grateful for your courage to do so. And we wish you well, my friend. Florida is a place where I've spent a lot of time in my political career, invested a lot of money. Ran the first Spanish language media campaign, for example, that Democrats ever ran in Florida, a significant one back in 2004. And this is close to my heart. I mean, one of the reasons we got involved in Donna Deegan's race in 2023 was that I wanted to show that things were possible to win, that it was possible for us to win in Florida. That was a big win for us. That was a big kind of jolt of energy, and I think the beginning of the comeback. And
That's exactly right.
And you're the next step. And so thank you, David, so much for being with us. Good luck, my friend, and hopefully we'll have you back in a few weeks.
Thank you, Simon.
Take care, everybody.